We just broke down an entire 28-pound chuck roll, and we got all these different cuts of meat out of it. I'm going to walk you through it, show you exactly how to do it yourself. But before we get into that, like, subscribe, and follow, because we're going to keep putting useful carnivore and clean eating content just like this out on this page. Let's break down a 28-pound chuck roll. Number one, get out as many cookie sheets as you think you need, and then get out some more, because you're going to need places to put all of these cuts and your trim and your junk. So it's just easier if you have more than you think you need. Second thing is I went ahead and trimmed about 3/4 of an inch off of each end, because when you're first looking at this big hunk of meat, it's hard to figure out, if you don't do it all the time, which side is which, right? So if the ends get a little bit kind of like squished and mangled in the packaging. So if you cut the ends off, it makes it a lot easier to see the marbling. And so it's a lot easier now to tell that this is where the chuck eyes are. And down here is where is like the roast end. I just went ahead and started my burger meat pile. The first thing you want to do is you want to look for, and it'll be pretty natural, right? There's a separation right here. And you want to follow that all the way across. It's just where the meat pulls apart naturally, starting from this front flap that's really easy to find. I'm not cutting meat with this. I'm just pulling it apart and then separating it where it naturally separates. So see how I started cutting from this side, but I've ended up at a natural seam over here, because again, I've just followed the meat all the way through where it naturally separates. And the best advice I can give you is just go slow, you know? Look twice, cut once. All right, so you want to take your big bottom piece and set it aside for now. Work on this piece. That's your chuck eye. That's the best steak in this cut, because what that is, a baby ribeye. So in the rib cut, the rib eyes come up to here. So this is where the rib stops and the chuck roll starts. You know, you can kind of tell if you ever look at rib eyes, like you can tell that looks like a baby ribeye. Nice fat marbling through it. That's another nice thing about breaking down your own meat. You can decide how thick you want your steaks. I like mine around an inch. Somewhere in that neighborhood. And that looks like a ribeye. Usually I'll get about 4 of these. How do you know when you've gotten through all the chuck eye? You'll see in just a second. Another one. Another chuck eye. Go for number 3. Chuck eye number 3. You see what's happening? That nice marbling that we had on these other steaks is starting to kind of wane. So I think that's probably going to be our last chuck eye cut. That's still a nice looking chuck eye steak, but you can see that, you know, the marbling is starting to thin out. This is a huge chuck roll. I think I'm going to squeeze a 5th one out. If you have a smaller chuck roll, obviously, you'll get a couple less cuts out of it. So we got 5 really nice looking chuck eye steaks out of that first section. All right, so this right here, and this is actually, gosh, the perfect size. We have like 17 kids, plus me and my wife. So my family will eat that whole roast in one night. My wife makes a great pot roast in the crock pot. She'll use that whole thing. If it's just you, or if you have a smaller family, again, nice thing about cutting your own meat, right? You can do it custom. So you could cut that in half and you could get 2 roasts out of this. This right here, that's 1 cut. That's going to be our roast. So far, we've got a roast and 5 gorgeous looking chuck eye steaks cooking with grease. All right, so now we go back to this. When you have a really big chuck roast like this, you're going to have a lot of like stuff that you can trim off. and turn into burger meat. Now you're going to have some silver skin and some fat on this next layer. So don't cut into the steak, just get in to the silver skin and start trimming that away. You don't want to put the silver skin in your burger pile like I almost did, but fat like that, you definitely want in your burger pile. So we're just trimming, and as we do this, we're uncovering probably my favorite part of this whole thing. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Got this breaking knife. It's a Cutlux. It's like $47 on Amazon. It's awesome. I was cutting paper with it yesterday right out of the box. There's this big fat cap on the front here. I'll show you what it looks like when I get it off here. It's just making it really hard to find the natural separation. So see this big fat cap here? Now that right there is a great example of awesome burger meat. On this one, I'm having a hard time finding the natural separation for the Sierra steak. When I run into things like that, what I do is I just go back to, trimming, because oftentimes that kind of opens up visually how the meat is held together. I can see the Sierra steak here because you could see the grain of the meat runs long ways because this is such a big chuck roll with some extra. It's just kind of holding everything together, making it harder to find the seam. I've never been a butcher. I have no expertise in this type of stuff whatsoever. This is my third time breaking down a chuck roll. So don't think that you can't do it. If I can do it, you can definitely do it. I found the seam for that Sierra steak where I thought it was. But again, this big extra chunk of meat on the front end. Front side was just kind of holding it all together. I'm just pulling and releasing the tension with the knife right where the fat and silver skin hold it together. All right, there's our natural separation on this side right here. Here it comes. There's that separation right there. You're not going to be able to see these separations until you just work the meat. There's our Sierra steak. We're just going to clean this Sierra steak up. Look what it looks like right now. Not bad, but we're gonna make it real nice. Again, we're not biting into the meat. Just peeling the fat and the silver skin off. All right. That's our Sierra steak. We make fajitas with this usually. All right, here we go. It's a beautiful Sierra steak. Carnivore Ray cut up a chuck roll the other day. And he just cut the whole thing in slices, which is cool. You can do that. There's no wrong way. But this is what I was talking about when I commented on there, and I said, you miss this by just cutting the whole thing in slices, right? Because that was like right in the middle between these two big flaps, right, that we separated. It was like sitting right there. So you want to extract that steak, you gotta go through the process we just went through to extract it. Let's finish it up. All right, so when you see stuff like this, like that looks like extra because it is, right? So that we can just cut off. That's all burger meat. By the way, this chuck roll was $5.19 a pound. That's what we're looking for right there. I just went back to shaving off the top, and I saw what I was looking for. This is what I was looking for. It creates this like fan, okay? So this fan right here, part of that is Denver's, okay? So you start at what will be the corner of the fan, right? Here, okay? You start cutting Denver's here. And we're going to get to a point where it kind of starts to fall apart and it's not Denver's anymore, and then the rest of that is going to be burger meat, okay? So just like we did with the chuck guys, we just kind of cut steaks until it becomes apparent that there aren't any more steaks to cut. Again, I like to make these, 3/4 of an inch. You don't want them thicker than that because Denver can be a little bit tougher if it's not cooked right. So that right there, that's a Denver steak. And you don't see a lot of those in the store. Again, I'm a little closet OCD, so I'll square it up a little bit. See how the marbling is kind of starting to go away? So that tells me we're pretty close to the end. We cut one more. This will actually be 2 because we'll cut it in half. We're in the widest part of the meat right now. Got 2 Denvers. The beautiful thing about it, you can decide how big your steaks are. The beautiful thing about this, you can't screw it up. You can cut the whole thing in just straight slices, like Carnivore Ray did the other day. And I'm sure he's enjoying the heck out of that. Meek, or Mount Everest, the burger meat over here's starting to have avalanches. There you have it. We just broke down an entire chuck roll. We've got this huge pile of grind meat for burger meat. You could also use it for stew meat. We've got this gorgeous Sierra steak. We got 5 of the best looking chuck eyes I think I've ever cut. A huge pot roast. Could be 2 pot roasts if you're a smaller family or by yourself. And 6 super good looking Denver steaks. If I can do it, you can do it too. Hope y'all enjoyed it. Definitely like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff, because we're going to keep putting carnivore and clean eating content out there for you guys to benefit from. As always, this whole thing is sponsored by Dad's Ranch, cleanest ranch on the planet. No seed oils, no maltodextrin, no sugars, just hardcore flavor and carnivore clean. You can get it at dadsranch.com. I don't know why that's so satisfying, but it is.